Yeah, I got Bel Air and Accessible.
Where is Felicia Johnson?
I can't put it into words. I'm trying to hold myself together and not just break down, and I don't know where my baby is or what's being done to her.
Called the Uber. Uber was taking too long to really get here. So a gentleman here at the club offered to give her a ride to where she needed to go. Felicia has not been seen since. No cell phone activity, no credit card activity, no social media activity. She has absolutely just vanished off the face of the earth.
On a cold, quiet day in the vast dense acreage of the Sam Houston National Forest, a worker moved slowly through the woods. He wasn't a detective, just a civilian, but his eyes caught something where there should have been nothing. A tattered, dirty trash bag. And not far from it, something else. Something unmistakable. Human remains. The grim discovery, made nearly a year after she vanished, offered an answer no one wanted, confirming the most terrifying fears of a family 1,500 miles away. It ended the desperate search for a beautiful, vibrant young woman who came to Houston with dreams, only to meet a terrifying, calculated end. This is the story of Felicia Marie Johnson, a story about the devastating cost of a single decision, the terror of a predator hiding in plain sight, and the catastrophic failure of a system that let a confessed killer walk free. But to understand the end, we must return to the beginning, to a life full of light before it was snuffed out in darkness. Welcome to 24/7 True Crime Chronicles, where every story we share is based on a real case. Grab your coffee and settle in for this thrilling true crime story. I'd love to know where you're watching from, so drop a comment below and join the conversation. To ensure you don't miss any of our newest stories, please support the channel by subscribing and turning on the notification bell icon. Let's dive in. Felicia Marie Johnson was the oldest of 3 children, a true San Diego girl, raised by her father, Kevin Johnson, and her stepmother, Myra. In every photo from her childhood to her vibrant 20s, she was the life of the party, smart, beautiful, and absolutely brimming with ambition. She dreamed of modeling, of turning her striking looks and undeniable personality into a bigger, brighter life. Her family described her as sharp-witted, intelligent, and someone who loved her family fiercely. She was their anchor, their joy. On April 10th, 2022, Felicia turned 24. It was a milestone celebrated back home in San Diego with her loved ones. The photos are a testament to her happiness. A young woman surrounded by friends and family, smiling, unaware that the clock on her life was already ticking down to 0. 5 days later, she would be gone. Felicia left the sunshine of California for the sprawling, imposing city of Houston, Texas. The purpose of her trip was twofold: a late birthday celebration and the pursuit of opportunity. She checked into the Intercontinental Houston Medical Center Hotel, ready to take her next step. A step that, tragically, led her straight into a meticulously planned trap. Her family was still in contact, texting and checking in. They were not privy to every detail of her trip, specifically the nature of the opportunity she was seeking. We now know that Felicia was looking for quick income, and her search for a new career path led her to an online escort website. It was on this digital platform that she connected with a man who would become her alleged killer, a 28-year-old named Chukwubuika Nwobodo. Nwobodo was a local, raised in the Houston area, but his past held a darkness that was known only to a few and was chillingly overlooked by the justice system. Years prior, a woman had filed an attempted sexual assault report against him, but she ultimately chose not to press charges. The case was closed, leaving Nwobodo with no arrest record, no conviction, and nothing to warn the next victim who crossed his path. On Friday night, April 15th, Felicia went to the Cover Girls nightclub on West Little York Road. She wanted to apply for a job as a dancer, but was turned away. Rebuffed but not deterred, she returned to her hotel. It was in the early hours of Saturday morning, April 16th, that she finalized the plans with the man she'd met online. Nwobodo had offered her $500 for a meeting. At approximately 2:56 a.m., Nwobodo ordered an Uber for Felicia. But here is where the chilling, calculated nature of his crime began to show. The address he gave the driver was not his current residence. It was his old address, a place he no longer lived, on Wind Chase Boulevard. A deliberate, cold-blooded maneuver to break the chain of evidence. The Uber dropped her off at the decoy location. Felicia, presumably, was picked up there by Nwobodo in his own vehicle, a black sedan, and taken to his real apartment on South Richmond Avenue. Felicia Marie Johnson got into that car. She was never seen alive again. By Saturday afternoon, the silence from Felicia was deafening. Her father, Kevin, could feel the panic rising in his chest. A girl who was always on her phone, always posting, was suddenly gone. A father's instinct told him a terrible truth. This wasn't a girl on an impromptu adventure. This was something far, far worse. The silence that fell over the Johnson family was the sound of a nightmare beginning. A nightmare that would take Kevin Johnson across the country in a desperate, frantic search for his daughter. But even as the search began, the killer was already moving, already planning his next step. Kevin Johnson didn't wait for the wheels of bureaucracy to turn. He made a decision fueled by pure, unadulterated, fatherly anguish. He booked the first flight he could find from San Diego to Houston. He couldn't be patient. He couldn't be distant. He needed to stand in the same air, walk the same streets, and scream his daughter's name in the place where she was last seen. For a man who had only wanted to protect his little girl, this was the ultimate, necessary move. To go to war against the unknown. As Kevin Johnson's plane sliced through the night sky, flying toward the vast, indifferent city of Houston, the killer was already working. He wasn't panicking, he was cleaning. He was methodical. He was covering his tracks. On Saturday, April 16th, mere hours after Felicia's phone went silent, Chukwubuika Nwobodo showed up at a local clinic. He told the staff he had cut his right hand while opening boxes. He received a bandage for a cut that to investigators would later speak volumes. The blood was still fresh. Then he went shopping. The supplies he needed weren't bread and milk, but tools of disposal. He was racing against the clock, against the mounting panic of a father who was now crossing the country to find him. The discovery of his next purchase would solidify every fear Kevin Johnson had, transforming the case from a missing person report into a full-blown homicide investigation. On the ground in Houston, Kevin Johnson didn't waste a second. He was a father stripped of his calm, his sole focus now the overwhelming task of locating a daughter swallowed by a city of millions. He went straight to the Intercontinental Hotel, then to the precinct, demanding answers. The initial police response, in his eyes, was a tragedy of apathy. A missing 24-year-old who had left a hotel voluntarily, possibly with a man. This was not a high-priority case for the department. But for Kevin, it was an emergency. He bypassed the slow-turning wheels of bureaucracy and hired a private investigator, a move that would prove to be the single most critical decision of the early search. The private investigator knew how to leverage technology, how to chase the digital shadow that Felicia's phone had cast before it died. Using every technique available, the investigator managed to ping the location of Felicia's cell phone. The coordinates led them far away from the glamour of the Houston Medical Center and the anonymity of Nwobodo's apartment complex. The ping directed them to a massive forested area on the western side of the city, Bear Creek Pioneers Park. It was there, on the side of a secluded road near Highway 6 and Clay Road, that the first undeniable proof of a violent crime was discovered. Felicia's phone was found. It was smashed and covered in blood. The discovery of the bloody phone was the turning point. It slammed the door shut on any hope that Felicia had simply run away or was having a prolonged birthday celebration.
Today, they searched an area of interest at Bear Creek Pioneers Park, which is right around the location where Johnson's family says her phone was found.
Well, it's been 5 days since Johnson was last seen leaving a nightclub on West Little York in Northwest Houston. ABC 13 reporter.
This was not a missing person case anymore. It was now officially a homicide investigation. The blood, later confirmed through DNA analysis to be Felicia Marie Johnson's, turned the focus squarely onto the man who had last seen her, Chukwubuika Nwobodo. As detectives began the forensic deep dive into the Uber receipts and the decoy address, the killer was still moving, still planning. The urgency the police now felt was countered by Nwobodo's cold, methodical planning. Remember the cut on his right hand he received medical treatment for? The seemingly innocuous trip to the clinic, where he claimed he was injured while opening boxes, suddenly took on a sinister meaning. Investigators now believe that cut was sustained not from a cardboard edge, but from the brutal violence inflicted in his apartment. But the true, horrifying window into his mind came from a chilling series of surveillance videos. On Saturday, April 16th, mere hours after Felicia vanished, and on Sunday, April 17th, Nwobodo was captured at two major retailers. He moved through the brightly lit aisles with the clinical efficiency of someone preparing for a construction project, not cleaning up a crime. At a local Walmart, he purchased a vital set of tools for disposal: a flashlight for working in the dark, heavy-duty trash bags for containment, and towels for cleaning. A day later, he visited Home Depot. His purchases escalated. He bought more heavy-duty cleaning chemicals and, most disturbingly, a mechanical saw. This acquisition strongly suggested that the initial crime had not only been fatal, but also involved the deliberate and horrific act of dismemberment. The community, meanwhile, was growing restless. The slow pace of the investigation, the fact that a vibrant young woman of color had vanished without a trace, began to attract the attention of local activists. Quanell X, a well-known community figure, stepped forward, demanding accountability from the Houston Police Department. This public pressure was crucial. It forced the HPD to dedicate more resources, adding a moral imperative to the investigative facts they were slowly gathering. They had the suspect's identity, they had the blood, and now they had receipts for the tools of dismemberment and disposal.
But I'm tired of the closure being a dead body. I'm tired of these young sisters being murdered. But at the end of the day, we want this brother to know we will not rest until you're held accountable for this crime. And this was a wicked crime, and a crime against women, and a crime against humanity.
The net was tightening, but the killer was still operating freely within the vast sprawl of Houston. The evidence was mounting toward an overwhelming portrait of a meticulously planned murder. It was time for the final, necessary move to close the distance between the suspect and justice. On May 13, 2022, nearly a month after Felicia disappeared, the Houston Police Department finally had their search warrants. They descended upon Chukwubuika Nwobodo's apartment on South Richmond Avenue, the place where investigators believed the terrible crime was committed. They weren't just looking for clues, they were looking for a body, or the forensic evidence left behind when a body is desperately disposed of. Inside the apartment, detectives confirmed their worst fears. Forensic sweeps revealed Felicia Johnson's DNA and blood throughout the apartment, specifically in the bedroom and the hallway. This wasn't a random struggle on the street. This was a deliberate, violent act committed behind a locked door. The circumstantial evidence of the bloody phone and the decoy Uber address now had an irrefutable anchor. The murder took place right here. But the apartment was only one piece of the puzzle. Police also executed a warrant on Nwobodo's black sedan, the car that had transported Felicia away from the decoy drop-off point. In the trunk and back seat, they found what they were looking for: the implements of a hidden, macabre operation. Loose latex gloves used for handling and cleaning, a shovel intended for digging, a handgun, and a large kitchen knife, both with traces of blood. The tools of murder and burial were all present, confirming the planned, predatory nature of the attack. Yet the most terrifying discoveries were not found in the car or on the floor. They were found deep inside the digital life of the accused killer. Nwobodo's laptop and phone were seized, revealing a chilling, detailed look into his mind in the immediate aftermath of the murder. His internet search history reads like a roadmap for a killer in crisis, a self-guided tutorial on escaping justice. The search queries were cold, calculating, and absolutely damning. How to delete your history completely. If bleach or vinegar could destroy DNA, how to get away with murder. Most forested part of Houston, leading him straight to areas like the Bear Creek Park, where he dumped Felicia's phone. But one search, more than any other, sent an ice pick of horror into the hearts of the investigators. One search query confirmed that Felicia Johnson was not simply of a crime of opportunity, but a casualty in the twisted, evolving hobby of a true predator. How to be a serial killer. The timeline was now complete. Nwobodo met Felicia, killed her in his apartment, drove her personal effects to Bear Creek Park, and then spent the next few days systematically buying supplies to clean up the scene and dispose of her remains, using the internet to guide his actions. The digital footprint was a confession without words. The Houston Police Department had all the pieces: the victim's DNA at the crime scene, the weapons in the killer's car, and the killer's own self-incriminating searches. They now had more than enough for a warrant. They just needed to find the man himself. The hunt began. The warrants were issued for his arrest, charging Chukwubuika Nwobodo with murder and tampering with evidence. The police were closing in, confident that the evidence they held was ironclad. They knew they had their man. The police had meticulously gathered the facts, the public had been alerted, the family was holding its breath. And then it happened. The police had eyes on the suspect. On the same day the search warrants were executed, police tracked him down. The pursuit of justice, they thought, was finally over.
She was murdered. Take a look at your screen. This is the man that police say is their prime suspect, 28-year-old Chukwubuika Nwobodo. Police say that he picked Felicia up from an apartment complex on Windchase Boulevard and then took her to his apartment on South Richmond Avenue in the early morning hours of April 16th. Police say they found evidence that leads them to believe Felicia was murdered inside of his apartment and that he allegedly dumped her bloody phone and other belongings near Bear Creek Park and then got rid of her body days later. Activist Quanell X has been speaking out on Felicia's behalf since she went missing, hoping all along that she would be found alive. Today, he told Fox 26 they believe the suspect is the same man who gave her a ride from the strip club.
May 13, 2022. It was 30 days after Felicia Johnson vanished. Based on the overwhelming forensic evidence, the blood, the DNA, and the killer's chilling online search history, the Houston Police Department Homicide Division finally had their man located. The pursuit ended not in a high-speed chase, but in a routine, anticlimactic traffic stop. Chukwubuika Nwobodo was pulled over while driving his black sedan. The officers executed the arrest warrants, taking him into custody for questioning. He was brought back to the station. Justice, it seemed, was finally taking its first crucial step. The arrest allowed investigators to immediately process the vehicle that had been used in the disposal phase of the crime. Inside Nwobodo's sedan, they found the tools of his twisted trade: a handgun, a large kitchen knife with traces of blood, a shovel, and various cleaning supplies. The physical evidence was overwhelming, solidifying the charges of murder and tampering with evidence. Then came the most damning, terrifying discovery of all. When investigators seized and analyzed Nwobodo's cell phone, they found something that instantly escalated the case from a single murder to something far more sinister. The phone contained a hidden gallery of horrors, specifically a photograph of a dismembered woman. And beyond that, investigators found 3 other pictures of deceased, unidentified individuals. The implication was staggering. Felicia Johnson, the vibrant 24-year-old from San Diego, was likely not his first victim. The man who searched how to be a serial killer had been practicing what he preached. The Houston police now had a captured active predator, a potential serial killer, sitting in their interrogation room. At this moment, with the murder weapons and evidence, the victim's DNA at the crime scene, the killer's digital confession, and the photographic proof of other potential victims, every protocol, every law, and every sense of moral duty should have led to one outcome: the immediate and permanent incarceration of Chukwubuika Nwobodo. But that is not what happened. In what would become known as one of the most devastating, catastrophic blunders in recent HPD history, the department released him. He was detained, questioned, and then inexplicably, he was allowed to walk free. The official, stated reason was that the Houston Police Department needed more time to build the case. They claimed they wanted to complete the forensic analysis of the physical evidence and the gruesome photos before formally charging him in court. The detectives had the evidence, but the bureaucracy stalled. The decision was a fatal misjudgment. It demonstrated a stunning underestimation of the suspect's calculated nature and an unforgivable delay in protecting the public. Chukwubuika Nwobodo, a man who police strongly believed murdered and dismembered a young woman and who possessed evidence linking him to other deaths, simply walked out of the police precinct doors. He was a charged suspect, a man they had successfully tracked down and apprehended, and yet he was allowed to leave without bond, without ankle monitor, and without fear. He was a free man. What is your take on this? Write it on the comment section below. Nwobodo did exactly what any cunning, cold-blooded killer would do. He vanished. He became a fugitive. It wasn't until days later, when the formal charges of murder and tampering with evidence were finally filed in the 232nd State District Court, that the police realized the enormity of their mistake. They had issued a warrant for the arrest of a man they had literally just let go. The failure was total. Kevin Johnson, thousands of miles away, relying on the justice system to hold his daughter's alleged killer, was blindsided by the devastating news. The man who likely took his daughter's life was now the subject of an international manhunt, solely because the very department that caught him chose to let him escape. The killer was now running, and for 10 agonizing months, the Johnson family would be left with fragments of evidence. A profound sense of injustice, and the lingering, horrific question, where was Felicia? When Chukwubuika Nwobodo walked free from the precinct, the Houston Police Department didn't just lose a suspect. They lost control of a murder investigation and launched a massive international manhunt. They had a mountain of evidence, a charge of murder, and the sickening implication that he was a burgeoning serial killer. Yet the man responsible was now officially a fugitive from justice. Authorities immediately went public. Nwobodo's photo, a man with deep-set eyes and a hard stare, was plastered on billboards, news reports, and social media. He was charged with murder and tampering with evidence, and the reward for information leading to his capture climbed to $5,000. The theories of his flight were numerous. Given his name and ethnic background, investigators speculated he might have fled the country. For Kevin Johnson, the catastrophic release of the suspect turned his grief into a 10-month-long torture. He returned to San Diego, forced to leave the physical search to the police, but emotionally, he remained stuck in Houston. Every morning, he woke up with the devastating reality that the man who had taken his daughter was out there, walking free and laughing at the system that had allowed him to escape. He spoke publicly, his voice raw with pain, railing against the systemic failure that defined his daughter's case. He needed closure. He needed a body. He needed his daughter back. It was February 2023, nearly 10 months after Felicia vanished. A worker for an energy company, performing routine maintenance, was deep in the remote, sparsely traveled area of the Sam Houston National Forest near Flamingo Lakes. This location was miles away from the initial search at Bear Creek Park, a deep, heavily wooded area often utilized for illegal dumping. The worker found human remains.
Have still not officially been identified. The Justice of the Peace there told us tonight he was on scene Tuesday when skeletal remains were found along with a trash bag that's now been collected as evidence.
Pieces of crime scene tape can still be seen not far from Katie Francis's house.
It's kind of creepy.
She lives at the edge of the Sam Houston National Forest.
Sometimes there's garbage bags where people dump stuff like that out, but oh gosh, it's probably been 30, 40 years since we heard of them finding anybody else up there.
But Tuesday afternoon, they may have found someone. From Drone 11, you can see the path off Highway 149 near Flamingo Lakes, where the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office says a TxDOT worker discovered human bone remains.
So, Grace, do we have any idea how long it will take to identify these remains that were found?
The Justice of the Peace told us tonight it could take some time, but they are working on this as fast as they can.
The initial reports were agonizingly vague. Portions of a human body were found. A trash bag was found nearby, eerily consistent with the items Nwobodo had purchased at Walmart. The incomplete state of the remains strongly supported the investigators' darkest belief that the mechanical saw purchased at Home Depot had been used. The discovery triggered a massive response. Investigators and forensic teams swarmed the area. The body parts were carefully collected and transported to the medical examiner's office for analysis. The wait for the Johnson family, already stretched to the point of breaking, was now a matter of DNA tests and dental records. The confirmation finally came. The remains belonged to Felicia Marie Johnson.
Human remains found in Montgomery County earlier this month have been confirmed as those of Felicia Johnson.
She's the 24-year-old San Diego woman who disappeared while visiting Houston in April of last year, and investigators are still looking for the man charged in her death.
Whenever they release her, then I will be able to have a service for her and pay her the respects.
The body has been found is so she can return to get justice for herself. And this is the first piece of the puzzle.
Her father now calling on police to hold a news conference and shine a spotlight on the case and the fugitive who has family in Nigeria.
If anybody knows anything, come forward, please, because that will make the family feel good that you guys are trying to help to get justice for Felicia.
The news brought not relief, but a finality of crushing loss. Kevin Johnson had his daughter back, but only in fragments. The vibrancy, the ambition, the smile that lit up a room, all that was left was evidence of a brutal, calculated crime. He had an answer to where she was, but not to why. Facing the media, his face etched with a decade of anguish and frustration, Kevin Johnson made a solemn public vow, a promise born from a father's eternal love and fury. He declared he would not rest, he would not stop. He would dedicate his life to ensuring that the man who was in custody and released, the man charged with his daughter's murder, would face justice. He had his truth. Now he demanded his accountability. As of this final chapter, the case of Felicia Marie Johnson remains tragically unresolved in one crucial aspect. Chukwubuika Nwobodo is still a fugitive. The story of Felicia Johnson is a painful reminder of the critical vulnerabilities that exist when digital connection meets real-world predation. It highlights the dangers of online escort work, the necessity of rigorous forensic investigation, and the catastrophic consequences of systemic error in law enforcement. Her case serves as an enduring plea for vigilance, for online users to recognize the signs of predators like Nwobodo, who use the anonymity of the internet to create a false sense of safety, and for the justice system to recognize the profile of a predator, especially when the evidence, physical and digital, points unequivocally to a clear and present danger. Felicia Marie Johnson's life was tragically cut short at 24. Her memory is honored by a father's resilience and a community's vow that they will not rest until the man who took her life is finally held accountable. If this story resonated with you and you want to ensure cases like hers are never forgotten, please consider subscribing and hitting the like button. Your support helps us keep the spotlight on these twisted crimes and those who deserve accountability.